Hey everybody, we are back. Today is, what are we on? Oh, the light's out. January 24th. Spitting everywhere, I'll leave what's phone. Today's January 24th, and we have been out for a week, haven't we, James? A week? No podcast for a week?
Yeah, it's been a while.
First one. No, we did do one with, Representative William Bodie on Saturday. But it's exciting to be back. So much has happened over the last week in the world of politics. So as you guys know, I think we have a little bit of a clip here, but last week the Senate took up voting rights, the John Lewis Voting Rights Bill and the Voting Rights Act. And in order for them to try to pass it, because they had no Republicans on board, they had to try and actually get all the senators on the Democratic senators on board with eliminating filibuster and making a talking filibuster. But it failed. It failed because two of the Democrats, Kristen Sinema from Arizona and Joe Manchin from West Virginia, voted with Republicans to not change the filibuster rules. Even though they say that they support voting rights, they voted against changing the filibuster. So, first off, how many people on here probably know what the filibuster is? James, you familiar with filibuster?
I've heard of it.
I'm sorry of it.
Oh, come on.
Go ahead
to be educated.
and
These
explain.
youngsters on board. No, but what the filibuster is, the filibuster actually came around during pre-segregation time, and it was a tool that was used in the Senate to be able to block the majority from actually moving on bills that impacted the majority.
Recently, many of our
the way it's supposed to work.
the democracy is at least as important as the economy.
I'm hearing audio. Do you hear it on that side? Okay, awesome. If we get them to send the majority, you would think that they would vote on what the majority wants, right? But that's not the case. So what the filibuster does is that it gives the people who are in the minority an opportunity to block bills from actually being able to become law. It was something that was used during, like I said, pre-segregation times when people didn't want us to move legislation along to stop the process of separating water fountains or bathrooms and migrating schools. They used the filibuster as a tool back during that time. So first question I got, guess, knowing that, is it something that we even need? Like, we vote on the Senate, we give them a majority. Shouldn't majority rule? Like, this is something I think we talked about a while back. Like, shouldn't majority rule? Like, even in the presidential election, we know that we don't really work off the popular vote. It works off the electoral college. Hillary Clinton won the popular vote by 3 million votes and still lost the presidency, the electoral college, right? So, but that's what happened last week. They had to get rid of filibuster in order to pass this, in order for it to be a majority. And two senators voted, who support the bills, voted against us getting rid of the filibuster. So, from our perspective, standing in the state of Georgia, how do you guys feel about what's going on in Georgia when it comes down to voting rights? Do you feel like you have a right to vote in Georgia?
Yeah, I have a right, but I do know, I've worked as a poll official worker, and I know just from experience how hard it is to vote and how they implement voter suppression so frequently, especially in Fulton County where it's majority minority people. So I'm in Gwinnett County, so it wasn't that major of a deal, but I hear about stories all the time, like about Stacey Abrams and how she deterred from having the chance to be governor because of voter suppression. So I do feel like it's a prominent issue in Georgia, definitely.
Well, voting in Georgia, voting period. You should have the right to vote. You should be able to get out to the polls and vote. You should exercise your right to vote. And to block or try to block someone and keep someone from voting is just downright unconstitutional. I mean, you know.
Depends on how you look at it, though.
Well,
because remember,
you give the people the right to vote, and then you want to block them, and that's,
but this is
theoretically speaking, is against the rules, or
but
should be.
From a perspective of being an African American in the United States, was the Constitution actually designed for us to begin with? The answer to that would be no, right?
It wasn't.
So when we have a constitution that states that if you're African American or you're black or you're a descendant of this country or what we consider to be a migrant, that you're 1/3 of a person. And that has never been so one of the things that I'm in favor of is I'm in favor of looking at the whole Constitution and revising the whole Constitution. The Constitution itself was written in the 1800s when we thought that slavery was okay. If we moved on past that, shouldn't the Constitution be redefined to kind of fit where we're currently at? I get people who are constitutionalists who says like, you know, the founding fathers, and I get all that, right? But it has to be updated to fit the times that we're in, right? We shouldn't have to be, the voting rights bill should not be something that we have to take up every 10 years. It should be something that's automatically, that everybody should have the right to vote. I think I was at an event yesterday and Shannon Jones was speaking, and he was talking about how literally you can't even give a person that you love in line in the state of Georgia a bottle of water without getting a misdemeanor.
Right.
That's the problem. Like, you in line and you hot and you about to fall out. If I go bring you a bottle of water and somebody sees it who may think just because I'm African American, I'm going to vote for a certain party that they may not like, right? They can call the police and I'll be charged with a misdemeanor for giving you a bottle of water. Like, is that opening access to voting?
Is that opening
access to voting? Or is that making it harder for people?
No, it will definitely cause people to, you know, to reconsider voting, that they can't, you know, give a loved one a bottle of water. It's a very convoluted thing, I think, that, you know, you're putting people in that position to begin with. It's a farce, it's a joke to even put that, you know, to even pass that bill to begin with. You know, is, you know, there's words and things I want to choice language I want to use, but I can't, you know, but you know, they're just, you know, I done got to the point where you know what, just let me go vote. Period. I'll just put a big old table like this and just fill it up with bottles of water. I won't hand anybody anything. You just grab your bottle as you go in. You know what I'm saying? There's a bunch of fruit on the table next to the water table, and you just grab you an apple, banana, pear, a bunch of grapes or whatever as you go in. Now, I'm not soliciting any votes. In fact, I'm just not even at the table manning it. But so am I putting myself in position, or am I just giving you an opportunity to grab you by the eyes, asking for nothing in return? So I mean, you know, so there's going to be ways around it, I think, because you could easily just set a cooler full of bottles of water and just set it up, open up the lid, and say free water.
Yeah, but yeah, I do think it is strategic how they make it so difficult to vote. And like you said, a lot of young folks, we don't even go out to vote. So if you're putting barriers to vote, it's easy for us to be like, oh, okay, I didn't really want to vote in the first place and not vote. So to me, it's strategic. So if we were to focus on voter suppression and how to alleviate that, then we could definitely get more voters. And that's why I really like Stacey Abrams, excuse me, and because she raised so much money. That's how I was canvassing for the Black Voters Matters, was because of the money she raised. And I think that was super dope, because she really cared about voter suppression, and she actually did the work for it, and it paid out.
But not only when you think about Stacey Abrams, like, she ran an election against somebody who was over the election. And did not step out of being over the election until after the election.
Exactly.
Again, so voter suppression is not just, and we say the term, but it's not, voter suppression is anything that makes it hard for people to vote versus making it easy. We look at the 2000, what year are we in, 2020 election when Joe Biden was elected president. It was the safest election. More people voted in that last election. Why? Because COVID was out. People were able to do mail-in ballots. They were able to do drop it off, right? You had drop-off locations. Why would we want to take that back when we know it was the securest election? And we know it was the highest turnout in history.
More information too.
When
people knew what to do to register to vote and everything.
Yeah, and when you couple this law and with taking away the drop-off locations, removing that or reducing that number, along with the new law and everything, and then the redistricting is another part of this suppression. is the redistricting of the polling, of the vicinities, the counties and everything, has made it where certain areas you can almost count on being able to be a black vote. But when you split that area up by by a third, and split it up and redistrict it, now that particular third now becomes a minority in your district, where before you didn't even have that third. Now that third is now you have it, but it's a minority third in your district, where before it made his district almost completely black, and now his district has been reduced by a third. They gave it to you, and then they gave me a third, but my third and your third really don't make a bit of difference, and it separates the results that are possible to get for that particular district and everything. And so when you couple all of that together, their plan, like you say, is strategic. So you get you go with this something. Well, if we can't stop them from voting, we'll give them a citation.
Yeah,
If to make it more difficult. Well, there's been plenty of people who have gone to jail for lesser crimes and citation. You do it all the time when you march and do rallies up in D.C. So that may or may not deter anyone. The thing is, when but you have a lot of people who are afraid. So they're hoping that their fear of the law or having to get in a citation, how that might affect them, in their regular everyday lives. They're counting on that fear. And the thing is that, you got to be fearless. Those who have, how do I want to say this? The fearless people have been able to make things, what's the word I'm going to use? The radicals, fearless radicals, are the ones who have made change in our country and in this world. We can't make change without running the risk, without some sort of risk or sacrifice of self. And to do that, it's going to have to be, you're going to have to do something that really is, you're going to have to step outside the box for yourself, of yourself, you know what I'm saying? And do a fearless act to be able to, and become a radical in such a way that as we continue to move forward, that what it is that you're doing that's radical can make a difference and make a change. But we can't operate in fear to be able to get to that point.
But even when we think about it, there was an article about how they were stating that people who are ex-offenders, so ex-offenders in the state of Georgia, the law states that once you have served your time, you are automatically restored your right to vote. There was a warning that went out to ex-offenders, like, hey, if you vote and you're not supposed to vote, we're going to come get you. And there's a lot of people who are qualified to vote, but now who are afraid to vote, only because of the fact that they're worried about the government coming out to get them. Why should people fear? Let me tell you something. The most important voice a person has in a democracy is the right to vote. Period. Hands down. Either whether you've messed up in society, whether you haven't messed up in society, whether you lived your perfect life, whether you haven't lived a perfect life, the only way you get a voice in society is the ability to be able to vote. And it's crazy to me, like, there's some states, and I think it's in Connecticut, or where is Bernie Sanders from, Vermont, where they actually mail ballots to the jail and allow you to vote while you're in jail. Why not? Why don't those people have a voice in their society? And when we do, for me, I'm just heartbroken that as a nation, 1964 we were fighting for voting rights. In 2021, we're still fighting for voting rights. And yet we're a nation that not only, that we're so involved in everybody else's issues, right? That we have our own issues going on over here and we can't even resolve those. It was funny because, we're supposed to be going to Germany in March. And they were talking about some of the same things. They're having the same problems. And it's crazy that as a world, when we have places that have democracies where people have the right to vote, instead of giving access to it, we have people who want to limit access to it. And in America, supposed to be this beacon of democracy. When we limit access to voting, we're no better than most of these other countries out here that have authoritarians as leaders. I mean, literally, January 6th, the fact that we could still be arguing about January 6th, 2021 and saying that those were good people says a lot about who we are as a country. Because when we had peaceful protesters in D.C. who were just peacefully protesting, they got gassed and pushed back so that a man could walk across the street and hold the Bible up and say that America's back, when we had people dying by the thousands of COVID at the time. But we have a great senator here. I mean, one of our senators here in Georgia, we go great, made a speech last week, and I wanted to play a part of that. I think we have it.
Recently, many of our colleagues have argued that legislation to protect voting rights somehow offends our federal system of government and amounts, they say, to a federal takeover of elections. Some of the same voices, ironically, who have extolled Dr. King's life this week have at the same time been working vigorously against the legislation we're debating today to protect the right to vote. And many of them have been channeling old states' rights arguments. Let the message go out. You cannot remember Martin Luther King Jr. and dismember his legacy at the same time. You can argue whatever side you want, but you do not get to argue both sides. I will not sit quietly while some make Dr. King a victim of identity theft. You do not get to offer praises and plaudits in memory of Dr. King and then marshal the same kinds of states' rights arguments that were used against Dr. King and against the civil rights movement.
So here we have Senator Warnock.
Please know that as the pastor of Dr. King's church, this argument evokes, I say really respectfully, it evokes.
He was given a speech on the floor, basically where he said that you can't argue and quote Dr. King, but again, stand against the values in which he stood for. We know last Monday was MLK Day. We had a lot of people who were just quoting Martin Luther King. Some of the same people who voted against moving the voting restriction laws actually quoted Dr. King on his birthday, but did not vote for a bill that we know Dr. King would support it. And on top of that, and I wish we would have got the clip, but the minority leader of the Senate, I forgot, he made a comment about African Americans where he basically kind of like said, and I'm paraphrasing this, they should be happy that we gave them voting rights back then, kind of deal. And they should need to sit in the corner and just be quiet. And he got in a lot of trouble and kind of had to step back on some of that last week on Friday. It's like, I voted for the voting rights bill, Mitch McConnell. Yeah, I voted. But it says, again, it speaks a lot about the mentality of the people we have in power. To think that African Americans need to be happy that we got a voting rights bill of 1964 that now doesn't apply to 2021 because we got it in 1964. We need to sit in the corner and be quiet. No, we should be on the streets protesting this just as hard as we were protesting George Floyd, because once again, if we're going to have a positive impact in our society, the only way to have a positive impact is to vote. And that's why, you're younger than me, you're a little older than me, just a little, about 5 years, a couple of years. But even when I think about like your generation, my generation, your generation, it's imperative that people get out and vote. And not only when it's time to vote for president, every election there is, you got to get out and vote. You think about Andre Dickens, he tells the story all the time. Like, Andre was, sorry, Andre, if you're watching this, but no one thought he was going to win, right? But what is he now? He's the mayor of Atlanta. Why? Because people got and voted. People began to listen to his vision. People began to buy into his vision. And ultimately, he was able to get those people back out there to vote. It's important that people get out and vote. And I know we had this discussion numerous times throughout the year, last year, but it will be one of our pinnacle points for this year. Voting rights. We talked about in our board meeting last week. It became, and even in our board meeting, it became like a big discussion, right? Yeah. Because everybody views how do we approach the situation totally different. But we will, at the end of the day, I think that I speak for us, I speak for me and Black Pushers organization, and Newburyport as an organization, that we have to we have to make sure that we get people out there to vote. And I don't care who they vote for, what their beliefs are. Everybody should get out and vote, right? That's the only way. Because in a democracy, the only way voting works is when the majority has a voice.
Yeah, I agree. I think you don't vote for any election. Local elections are really, really, really
Extremely important. Yeah.
Because we even think about when we think about judges and chiefs and things like that, especially judges. It's like we see so many police brutality, and we're wondering, well, how is this happening? It's because you didn't vote. You voted for that judge or that sheriff, and that person wasn't even for a cause.
But not even that. I just thought about it too. Even when it comes down to voting, the way you get on the grand jury is you have to be registered to vote. So the way you get on the grand jury, like if you want to make a change on the grand jury and be able to indict some people who are doing wrong things, the only way to have a voice even on the grand jury is you have to be registered to vote. You have to be a voter, right? So I mean, I don't know. Like it's sad that 2021 we're still fighting for this as a minority. And I think we're at a meeting. I think it was 365 in Gwinnett, where they said if you take every minority group and put them together, they will be the majority, right?
Absolutely.
And that's sad that we are still in a place in 2021 where, and it's not just impacting CPOs. The mistake people make is thinking that when we have voting restriction bills, it only impacts Black Americans, right?
Right.
The reality is that it impacts every American.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I mean, your grandma, I don't want if I had a white grandmother or a black grandmother, whatever the case may be, if she's standing in line for 2 or 3 hours, first off, we need to figure out how to get the lines down so people are not waiting 2 or 3 hours in line, right? I don't know with technology, why can't I vote from home? Why can't I just give it think about like, but I'm just saying like, even think about like this, like the Department of Labor now uses a system called ID.me. And what ID.me is that in order for you to get benefits, you have to verify. The Social Security uses it. The Social Security Administration uses it. The IRS website uses ID.me. And in order to get access to the system, you have to verify your identity. We can't do that with voting, really?
Right.
In 2021, where we verify exactly who you are.
You talk about all the hacking and stuff that come along with it, but the hackers can hack into. You worried about something that is supposed to be secure, and you're okay with it. You're not okay with it for voting, but you're okay with it when it comes to the IRS and the taxes that you have to pay. You're okay with it when it comes to your own personal information that goes out, that could possibly be put out there on the dark web. You're okay with that, but you're not okay with using it for
voting.
For voting.
We should listen. My call is going to be to everybody in 2022. That's the year we're in, I think. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
My call for everybody in 2022: not only get out and vote, let's go out there and let's protest to make sure that everybody has the right to vote, and that we make voting easier instead of harder. Like.
Yeah, and what I would say when we think about the senator race, like what I really liked about that was there was so much information. Like there were so many people canvassing, there were so many flyers telling you
You're
like.
a canvasser at heart, aren't you? Ready?
Yeah, because I really and like that was one of my favorite election, just because I felt like I had a personal part in it, and it was like it felt so empowering, to elect Warnock and all of that.
So you got to check.
No, I didn't get a check, but I felt like I got a check. But I thought it was so important that it was so much information. Like they had the flyers, they had the website. I was telling people, if people actually wanted to hear and listen, they're like, well, who do I vote for? Like, I would go to houses, they're like, just tell me who to vote for. I'm like, I'm not going to tell you to vote for, but I'm going to give you information so you can make that decision, but I can tell people have more passion about it.
And that's the thing that's important. I think that the biggest key to 2022 to getting people out to register, getting people registered to vote and getting people out to vote, is educating people on the importance of
Get
voting.
the information out
I think we need to educate people on SB 202 in the state of Georgia.
Yeah.
I think we need to educate people on what the rules are, because even though they changed the rules doesn't mean that we don't still have the right to vote. We just have to play by the rules, right? And the reality is, and this is the big secret, if we want to get some of these laws stripped and passed, like get these laws off the books, we have to put people in place who believe in what we believe in. So we got to educate ourselves on who's running for office.
Yeah.
And that's extremely important too. So education. And I think tomorrow we're going to be talking about something that happened in Mississippi that deals with what? Education. Education is going to be the key to this year. So I want to encourage everybody out there, man, get out and vote. Get out and vote, register to vote. If you're not registered to vote, please check out so many different organizations in the state of Georgia that is we're out here busting up behind Georgia Stand Up, People's Agenda. You can call our offices here. We can help you get registered to vote. Like, it's important that people get registered to vote. Educate yourself on who you're voting for. Educate yourself on who's running. Know who's running. Yeah. Knowing that in the governor's race on the Republican side, the governor's race, it's about 5 people running for governor.
Up to five now?
Up to 5 now. You got so many different people who are running for governor. And across the state, you have so many people who are running. We just had Charlie Bailey, who was running for Attorney General, convert over to running now for Lieutenant Governor on the Democratic side. So he's running against people. He's running against a lot of people. Some people who have been on our podcast recently. He's been on our podcast. Mm-hmm. So educate yourself on who's out there. We're not going to tell you who to vote for, but there's enough information about these people out there on the dark web, as James likes to call it, for us to know and educate. And all of them have websites, so check them out. And you're hearing from the young, the old, the middle age. Like, get out and vote. Extremely important. And I stand with I would say, from our perspective, we believe that the John Lewis Voting Rights Bill needs to be passed and the Voting Rights Act needs to be passed. And we don't need to pass tomorrow. We need to pass yesterday. Literally.
I'm a firm believer, and I'm going to say this again. Vote for what you stand for. Because you can't, voting majority because your family, your friends are voting for this particular person, or if that's not what you believe, or that you don't trust what this person is all about, vote your interest. That's all I'm going to tell you. Vote your interest, because at the end of the day, it's particularly when it comes to your state, county, and city elections. Those are the ones that are going to impact you the most in your daily life. Vote your interest and put people in office that have your best interests at heart.
Yeah, and at the same time, educate yourself. Educate yourself, because if we don't vote this year, you're going to see the rights of women to have abortions stripped. You're going to see the rights of men and women to marry whom they want to marry stripped. You're going to see the rights of voting rights stripped even more. There's so many different laws, and you're going to see gun bills fly through states. Like right now, our governor has made it his top priority is to expand how people are able to carry guns in the state of Georgia. And we have so many other issues like healthcare that need to be dealt with. He'd rather invest his capital this year into passing bills to expand the ability to be able to carry guns, which again, I'm not anti-gun, but I think that there's a higher priority. I think that you don't put the health care of somebody over whether or not a person should have the right to carry a gun. But that's another topic for another day.
Or vice versa, actually.
Vice versa, right. But that's another topic for another day. But, get out and vote. We're going to be out there with you. We're going to be out there this week. We're going to be going across the state talking about this. And before we leave off today, we did the One Accord Conference last year, and we are excited because we are announcing today officially that we're going to hit 3 cities this year with our One Accord Conference. So if you didn't catch our One Accord Conference last year, take a look at this.
The other day, I was going to New York City, but I saw the Statue of Liberty getting ready to blow out the torch. I got out of my seat, and I ran up to the pilot's door, and I beat on the door. I said, I got to talk to the Lady Liberty. He looked at me, shifted gears, put the plane in reverse. I rolled down my window. I said, Lady Liberty, I saw you about to blow out your torch. She said, oh yeah. She said, I saw what y'all gave me in 45.
Now, the nation that lost its mind when a certain somebody was holding the public office, number 45.
I saw what they did in Georgia when they passed SB 202.
I saw SB 202 firsthand. So I got a chance to be on the front lines, the front row, and saw how fast injustice rolls downhill. Withered hearts get together in meetings and they create SB 202. These are withered hearts that will arrest you for giving somebody a water.
We've got the worst voter suppression bill in recent history.
I saw the 17-year-old in the streets with an automatic rifle killing 2 people in Woodland. I saw it. His son was killed by a Atlanta police officer. Didn't have a weapon, but he was in a closet hiding. And still lost his life.
What I have a problem with is the law not applying equally to law enforcement the way it applies to civilians.
These young men robbing, stealing, killing.
Too many of our churches in Georgia have faith, but they don't have justice.
Can you have faith and justice together? Some people don't think that's even possible.
A child that had a ketchup soup meal last night for dinner did not have an opportunity to attend your church.
But if you look at the simplicity of social justice, it simply means that every human being deserves equal treatment.
I'm tired of standing here talking about justice, truth, and righteousness.
As pastors, we have to ask ourselves, where have we gone wrong?
Isn't it something how we could say a whole lot and do nothing?
I said, but Lady Liberty, give me one more chance. She said, well, give me your best shot, or we're going to have a meeting, Lady Liberty. And let me tell you about one accord.
One accord is what we need.
The Bible says that when they got on one accord, nobody lacked because they were on one accord.
Because if we live by what his word says, we're not going to go wrong.
We're going to lay down our nationality. We're going to lay down our denominationalism. We're going to lay down our territory.
We must understand and educate our people like never before.
I believe without this kind of push, with this kind of energy, even in our community, we too will be able to push back the soot.
And Lady Liberty, if you give us one more chance, I believe that we can learn how to work together, how to struggle together, how to protest together.
As for me and my house, not only will my name be on the back of the check, but my name will be on the front of the check.
We must get the IDs that we need. We must show up to the polls.
As for me and my house, not only will our church have their church property on the corner, but we're going to stop gentrification that's happening 6 blocks around the church.
Lady Liberty, don't blow out your torch. We're going to turn Georgia right side up. We're going to turn the nation right side up.
As for me and my house, not only will we serve the Lord, but we'll look like him.
She looked at me. She wiped the tear from her eyes. She said, you go on back, Reverend, and you tell them, I'm going to give them one more opportunity to let justice roll down like water. I need them to stand up for that which is right. Stand up for the poor. Stand up for the women. Stand up for all of God's children. And let's be a Warnock accord. Be it out of the hearers of the Are you ready to do it?
So don't forget, join us for the One Accord Conference for this year as we go around the state. And also, too, don't forget that we'll be back tomorrow. We'll be talking about critical race theory and situation that happened in Mississippi.
Yes.
So that'll be coming up tomorrow on January 25th. So you guys have a blessed day and stay blessed.